It was quiet inside the car, the kind of quiet that says more than words ever could. I sat still, watching the world blur past through the window. The rain made everything look like it was melting. But I wasn't watching the storm. I was holding something tighter than the seatbelt across my chest, my grandmother's bracelet. A simple silver chain, cool to the touch, worn thin from time and memory. She gave it to me the night she passed. "This will protect you," she whispered. "Even when no one else will." I used to think she meant strangers. I didn't realize she meant them, my own family. Beside me, Leor talked about his new internship. Mom said it would finally set him straight. He laughed like everything was working out just fine. I nodded, but I wasn't really listening. I was holding on to that bracelet like it was the only proof I ever mattered to anyone. I remember the moment just before it happened. The rain blurred the outside world into watercolor streaks, and for a second, everything felt too quiet, even the kind of quiet that comes before something shatters. I looked at Leor. He was still talking, still laughing at something on his phone. I don't think he ever saw the red light. I did, and I saw the truck. It came from the left, fast, heavy, headlights slicing through the storm. I opened my mouth to say something, maybe to warn him, but nothing came out. The impact didn't feel like pain at first. It felt like pressure, like my entire body had been punched by the sky itself. I remember my head slamming to the side, the sound of crunching metal, the windows exploding. Then everything went white. Not peaceful white, just empty. No thoughts, no fear, no screaming. Only silence. And in the middle of all that nothingness, I remember one absurd thing. The bracelet. It slid off my wrist and disappeared. I woke up to brightness I couldn't escape. White lights above me. White sheets below me. My body didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt borrowed, broken, repurposed. My mouth was dry. I tried to speak, but no words came out. Only a faint breath. My lips were cracked, my throat burned, everything hurt. When I tried to move, even just slightly, something tugged at my arm. Tubes, wires, machines. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know if Leor was alive. I didn't even know if I was. A nurse noticed I was conscious. She leaned over, calm but efficient, pressing something on the wall. I wanted to ask her what had happened, but I couldn't find the strength. Then I heard the doctor's voice just outside the curtain. "She's stable. We removed her kidney. The bleeding was extensive." Removed? My kidney? I blinked. My brain couldn't process it fast enough, but my body already knew. There was an ache deep in my side, sharp and throbbing. I looked down at myself. The bandages, the hospital gown, the unfamiliar weight of someone else's decision. No one had told me. No one had asked me. And now, a part of me was gone, and I didn't even get a choice. It was the middle of the night when I woke again. Not fully. Not the kind of waking where you sit up and speak. No, this was different. My body refused to move. My mouth wouldn't form words. But my mind, it was awake. I kept my eyes closed. At first, I thought I was alone. Then I heard voices. Close. Behind the curtain. They were familiar. My mother. My father. The doctor. They spoke softly, but not gently, like people do when they think the thing they're talking about can't hear them. "If we take her other kidney," my mother asked, "will she survive?" My heart stopped. I wasn't sure if I'd imagined it. But the doctor answered, "No, she wouldn't." There was a pause. Then came my father's voice. "But Leor needs it. He has a future." And my mother, again, her tone flat, as if she were talking about moving furniture. "She's a burden. This would be her contribution." I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I could barely breathe. But I heard every single word. And they weren't whispers. They were knives. I didn't think words could hurt more than stitches or knives. Until that night. Until I heard my own mother say it. She's just a burden anyway. Not in anger, not through tears, just like it was a fact. Like she'd always known it, and had just been waiting for the right moment to say it out loud. Then came my father. Leor has a future. She doesn't. He didn't whisper, he didn't hesitate. That was their truth. That's how they saw me. Not as a daughter, not as a human being, just as a leftover, a spare part, an unfortunate weight dragging down their golden sun. I lay there in silence, eyes closed, still pretending to sleep. But inside, something shattered. Not my heart, because that had already broken long ago. It was something deeper. The final thread that still connected me to them snapped. I didn't cry. Not when I heard them plan to take what was left of me. Not when they called me a burden. Not even when they decided I wasn't worth saving. I lay there, still, breathing in the darkness, letting the silence wrap around me like a second skin. The girl I had been, the daughter who still hoped, still wished for love from the people who created her, she died quietly that night. But something else was born. Not rage, not revenge, a promise. I will live. Not because they want me to, not because they deserve to see me rise. I will live to get away from them. To never need their names, their approval, their permission again. They see me as nothing, so I'll become something they can never own, never touch, never use again, and they will never know who I become until it's too late. It started with a file, just a manila envelope left on the edge of the hospital bed addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Vale. But the nurse handed it to me by mistake, and curiosity became revelation. Inside, copies of claim forms, hospital invoices, transfer statements, insurance documents, and then a payment confirmation, $180,000, released within 72 hours after the crash. Blood money, meant for my surgeries, for my recovery, for saving what was left of me. But it never came to me. It went somewhere else. A diamond ring for Leor's fiancé, a full semester's tuition at a private university, a luxury rehab spa for emotional stress under my mother's name. Every receipt signed, every form approved, every line written in the ink of betrayal. They didn't just steal my kidney, they sold my pain. They packaged my suffering into upgrades for someone else's life. I stared at the papers, my hands trembling. No anger, not yet. Only one thought echoed in my mind. They made me disappear, on paper. And if I wanted to survive, I would have to become someone they'd never recognize again. Days passed. No flowers, no visitors, no voices calling my name. Only nurses, only machines. And silence so thick, it felt like I was buried alive in it. The hospital staff tried to smile, tried to treat me like I mattered, but even they knew something wasn't right. No emergency contact showed up, no one brought clothes, no one called to ask how I was healing or if I was even still alive. I became a body in a bed, a complication, an afterthought. And somewhere between the IV drips and the shift changes, it hit me. I wasn't just unwanted. I was inconvenient. They wanted me quiet. They wanted me gone. But since they couldn't bury me, they chose the next best thing. Erase me. Emotionally, socially, legally. They never said the words, but their absence screamed louder than anything they could have told me. I was no longer their daughter. Just someone who refused to die when it would have been easier for everyone else if I had. I didn't expect her to notice me. Nurse Isolde was always calm, always fast, always moving between patients like she was holding the whole ward together with invisible threads. But that morning, she paused, right beside me, right as I pretended to sleep. She adjusted my IV, checked the monitor, then leaned in and whispered, "They may think you're invisible, but you're here. Don't let them take that too." No pity, no drama, just clarity. sharp as steel, quiet as breath. For a moment, I froze. She saw me. Not as a patient, not as a problem, as a person. And suddenly, all the silence, all the numbness, all the polite nodding to death, they cracked. Not open, but deep. Because those words weren't just kind. They were a dare. If I wanted to live, truly live, I had to stop letting them erase me. I had to fight. Even if no one fought beside me. No balloons, no family waiting, no warm coat wrapped around my shoulders. Just me. A scar running across my stomach like an accusation carved into skin. A plastic hospital bag with the clothes I arrived in still stained, still torn. And a folder of discharge papers I could barely read. I stepped outside. The air felt too cold, too sharp, like the world was reminding me I was no longer protected. But I walked anyway. Each step was slow, each breath shallow. There was no one to call, no apartment waiting, no plan. Only a promise still echoing from the dark. I will live, even if it means starting with nothing. In my hand, the old bracelet from Grandma, warmth from a time before betrayal. In my chest, a fire that hadn't gone out. Not yet. The bookstore smelled like paper and dust, almost sacred after months of hospital bleach. I started on the night shift, sweeping aisles, restocking shelves, mopping floors still sticky from children's fingerprints and coffee spills. Quiet, thankless, invisible work. But it was mine. During breaks, I read, not novels, textbooks, GED prep guides, science, math, English. I hadn't touched school in years, but every page I turned felt like a step away from them, my parents, their choices, their silence. At home, just a rented room above a pawn shop, I had no fridge, no TV, no bed frame, only a mattress, a stack of secondhand clothes, and a jar, a plain glass jar hidden under the mattress springs. Every shift I dropped something in, a crumpled $5, a $1 bill, even coins. Saved, guarded, never touched. Each dollar whispered back, you owe them nothing, you need them never. I didn't have power or comfort or a future I could see yet, but I had that jar, and every coin inside was a vow. It came in an envelope, no return address, just my name, handwritten, inside a flash drive and a note in tight, careful script. You deserve to hear it, Isolde. I stared at it for hours. I knew what it was, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know everything. But truth doesn't wait for permission. I plugged it in. No music, no preamble, just voices. My mother, she's just a burden anyway. My father, Leor has a future, she doesn't. The doctor, it's illegal without consent. My mother again, then don't ask. She can't say no if she's unconscious. Click, pause, silence. And then something new inside me woke up. Not grief. I had cried that out already. Not rage. That had scorched through my bones long ago. No, this was something colder, sharper, like steel forged in ice. They hadn't just failed me. They had planned to erase me, deliberately, efficiently. But I survived, and now I had proof. They may have stolen my body, my home, my name, but I still had one thing they'd never expected, a future. He walked in wearing a tie 2 inches too tight and confidence 10 years too old. Good morning, he said, extending his hand. Leor Hale. I'm here to interview for the operations position. I didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't give away the storm behind my eyes. Instead, I smiled the kind of smile HR manuals describe as professional but warm, and gestured for him to sit. He didn't recognize me. Not in this tailored suit, not with this sharp posture, not with the name on the placard in front of me, Clare Olan, co-founder. He saw a stranger. He had no idea he was sitting across from the girl whose kidney his life was built on, the sister whose screams were silent under morphine while he thrived. He handed me his resume. top-heavy with internships, thin on impact, sprinkled with buzzwords desperate for relevance. I flipped to the last page. References. Parents, Martin and Elaine Hale. Of course, they were falling. He was falling. And here I was, the so-called burden, interviewing the son they almost killed me to save. Irony doesn't whisper, it spits. But I didn't raise my voice, didn't call him out. Not yet. Because justice arrives best when dressed in silence and a name they can't erase. I let him speak. He stumbled through his qualifications, his goals, his passion for healing communities. I didn't interrupt, not once. And when he finally paused, smiling like he thought he still had control, I reached into the drawer, pulled out the USB, placed it on the table, slid it toward him. Smooth, deliberate, final. He blinked. "What's this?" he asked, voice thinning. I looked him in the eye for the first time. The kind of look that burns the bridge before you walk away from it. "That," I said, "is your voice, and theirs, plotting to let me die." He froze. I leaned forward, voice calm. No hate, no tremble. "Yes, I'm alive, and I remember everything you let them do." His jaw twitched, his skin paled, but I didn't flinch. "Your resume says you're good with pressure," I continued. "Let's test that." The silence between us wasn't empty. It was screaming, with betrayal, with memory, with justice long overdue. And I didn't need to say another word. The USB said enough. He opened his mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to lie, maybe just to survive. I didn't let him. "We don't need an apology," I said quietly. "This company exists to protect those who were used, abandoned, broken." I stood, my voice steady, unflinching. "We protect people from betrayal." I leaned forward, not threatening, just undeniable. "And you, Leor, are the betrayal." He swallowed hard. The resume still sat in his lap, forgotten, like everything else he used to count on. I didn't look away. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Because the truth spoken cleanly is louder than any scream. "I wish you healing," I said finally, "but not here, not with us." He stood slowly, like someone waking from a dream they never deserved. And as he walked out, I didn't watch him go. I turned back to my desk, to my work, to the people who still needed someone to fight for them. Let him live with the silence. It said more than revenge ever could. The envelope was thin, like it had traveled through shame. No return address. Just my name, spelled correctly for once, inside a single sheet of paper, faint blue ink. Familiar handwriting I hadn't seen since I was lying in a hospital bed, stitched together by betrayal. "Dear Claire, we heard about your company. We're proud of you. Things have been difficult. Leor lost his job, we lost the house. But no matter what happened in the past, you're still our daughter. Please help us." Still our daughter. I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand, but because part of me wanted, just for a moment, to believe those words meant something more than desperation. They didn't. I set the letter down, folded slowly, as if the paper might crack from the weight of its lies. They chose Leor. They sold my life for his tuition, his comfort, his future. And now, from the ruins of their own collapse, they reached for me, not to embrace, but to use, again. But I wasn't Milas anymore. I was Clare Olan. And Claire didn't save people who tried to bury her. I didn't cry. I didn't pause. I didn't write a speech. Just one page, 12 words, every one of them earned. I slipped the reply into a plain envelope. No return address, no signature. Just truth. I wrote, "I was your daughter when I was unconscious in that hospital bed. You chose your son. Now live with that choice." I didn't send anger. I sent consequence. And I sent it quietly. The weight of those words wasn't in their volume, but in their finality. I sealed the envelope, dropped it into the mailbox, and with that, the door behind me didn't slam. It clicked, closed. The sun was low, not quite golden hour, not quite dusk, the kind of light that softens even the sharpest memories. I stood by the mailbox with the letter in my hand. It didn't burn. It didn't tremble. It was just paper now. And I was just a woman who no longer owed anyone her pain. I held it for one last second, not to hesitate, but to honor the version of me who once waited for love from people who never intended to give it. Then I let go. The envelope slipped into the metal slot with a soft click. And just like that, I wasn't angry anymore. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. I turned away from the mailbox, not with bitterness, but with clarity. The past had taken enough. It didn't get to take my future, too. The press release was short, simple language, medical terms, bullet points. But one line made the world pause. Effective immediately, the Clare Olan protocol will be adopted nationwide. I stared at the screen, not with shock, but with a quiet ache I couldn't name. CLA protocol, a safeguard for patients at risk of medical exploitation, especially children, the disabled, and the voiceless. It required ethics oversight, mandatory consent interviews, third-party advocates during any organ donation discussions. No one would ever be wheeled into surgery again without someone somewhere making sure they were truly safe. And it bore my name, not as a reminder of pain, but as a promise that pain ends here. I didn't fight to become a symbol, but if my story could shield someone else, then let my name echo not in whispers of trauma, but in declarations of protection. I returned to the dock alone. No suitcase, no witness. Just me and the sea that once mirrored my silence. This was where I used to dream of vanishing, of letting the water swallow me whole, because being unseen felt safer than being betrayed. But now, I walked slowly to the end of the dock, the boards worn soft by time and weather. My hand brushed the splintered railing, and I felt no fear, only memory. I looked out at the open water, deep and endless, and I whispered, not to the waves, but to the girl I used to be. They tried to end me. But I kept living. Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because life is mine, and it always was. I lived, not as Mileas the burden, but as Clare Olan the woman who built her name out of broken bones and turned her scars into shelter. They once labeled me a burden, a spare part, a thing to sacrifice for someone more promising. But I rewrote the label, with every scar I wore in daylight, with every hand I held in silence, with every voice I helped find its volume again. I didn't survive just to breathe. I lived so no one else would have to feel what I did, unwanted, unchosen, unseen. Now, the name they tried to bury lives on hospital walls, in policy documents, and in whispered prayers from strangers who finally feel heard. Clare Olan, not a burden, not just a survivor, not a donor against her will, but a living, breathing refusal to disappear, a story they can't erase. And if you're watching this, wondering if you matter, you do. You are not what they called you. You are what you choose to become. You don't have to forgive to be free. You just have to let go of what was never yours to carry. Clare's story teaches us that survival is only the beginning. Healing is messy. Strength is quiet. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to choose yourself. You are not a burden. You are not what they did to you. You are a story worth protecting, a future worth fighting for. So if you've ever been told you're too much or not enough, remember Clare. And remember this, the people who tried to erase you don't get to define you. If this story moved you, if you saw a part of yourself in Clare, and if you believe in standing up for the invisible, click subscribe to join a community where voices like hers and yours are never silenced again. Let's protect each other, Let's share the stories they tried to bury, one voice at a time, one click at a time.